Hello, everyone, and welcome to the RV Inspection and Care podcast and video. I'm Dwayne. I'm a certified RV inspector, and today we're going to be talking about choosing between a Class A RV motorhome or a fifth wheel. You know, there's several different kinds of RVs out there, and that's a good thing because it allows each person to find the RV that works best for them, the way they like to travel and camp. But if you're one of those folks who really likes a lot of living space when you are RVing and you like amenities and extras, well, then there's two main choices to look at, and that's either a large Class A motorhome, probably a diesel pusher, or a larger fifth wheel. Now, some Super Cs can also work in this area, but honestly, much of what I covered today about Class A motorhomes can apply as well for Super Cs. But if you have either a larger Class A or a larger fifth wheel, it's going to allow you to travel and camp in style. You're often going to have multiple slides that just opens up the living area and gives you that big apartment feel while you're RVing, and people love that. So how do you choose then? Well, let's cover the pros or the advantages of going either way here. And let's start with the Class A motorhome. And the first advantage we're going to talk about is something that honestly I don't see a lot of people mention that really is an advantage for motorhomes and especially bigger ones like Class A's. And that is that all of the weight issues have already been worked out and resolved for you by the manufacturer, by the builder of the motorhome. That's not true with towable RVs like fifth wheels. You've got to get familiar with all the weight ratings. You've got to understand how much the RV weighs, how much the tow vehicle weighs. Make sure you match it up. All of that is taken care of for you with the Class A RV because the manufacturer figured all that out. All you have to do at this point, just put your cargo in and make sure that you don't put too much cargo in it and go over the cargo limit. So that's a real advantage. The second advantage of a Class A RV is the kitchen and the bathroom are available to you while you're even traveling down the road. This is huge for a lot of people, especially the bathroom part. That's really great. You have access really to almost the whole motorhome in many cases. So a lot of people feel comfortable having that option. The next advantage of a Class A RV is that you can tow along a small vehicle behind your motorhome, and that vehicle can become your around town vehicle instead of that big, bulky tow vehicle that goes with a large fifth wheel. A lot of people find that difficult to get in and out of smaller spaces around town, but if you have a small vehicle, it's very comfortable. The next advantage of a Class A RV, backing up is more of a normal experience. In other words, if you know how to back up a vehicle, well, then you can back up a Class A RV. Even the big diesel pushers, they're just bigger. Once you get used to that it's just bigger, well, then it's not that difficult to learn to back them up. But when you're talking about a towable RV, there's always a pivot point on the back of your tow vehicle. And that pivot point is something people have trouble with, trying to figure out how to use it and get that RV backed up in a straight line. It takes some getting used to, and some people honestly just never do get used to that. So backing up is more of a normal experience in a motorhome. The next advantage of Class A is that panoramic front view out the windshield. You know, that really is nice. It's not just the size of the windshield, it's the fact that you're sitting up too while you're looking out. It's really great. It's one of the best ways to be able to travel the country. Now, a little bit of a downside is that windshield can become a heat radiator too when you're going into the sun. My experience, though, was just adjust the air conditioning somewhat and you're usually fine. The next advantage of a Class A RV, there's lots of exterior storage in most of these larger Class A's. I mean, you usually have a basement storage area, and many times it's passed through, and you can put a lot of stuff in there. But there's also other big storage compartments going down the side, and they can be used as well. Now, fifth wheels have storage compartments, and some of them are pretty large, but I've got to say that in most cases, I feel like the larger Class A motorhomes, they still have the most cargo storage area. The next advantage we're going to talk about for Class A RVs is that you usually have a built-in generator. I mean, the manufacturer built it in, designed it as part of the motorhome. That's really nice because with fifth wheels, in fact, very often you don't get a built-in generator with them, but you can put one in, but it's not quite the same as having it designed from the factory for that RV. So it's very simple, very easy. In fact, in a Class A diesel pusher, the generator usually uses the fuel that's in the fuel tank to run, so you don't have to store any fuel. It's really convenient, and that's a big advantage. Let's move on to fifth wheel advantages now, though. And the number one advantage of going with a fifth wheel over a large Class A motorhome is it usually is going to cost you less for the entire rig. Now, with the fifth wheel, you're going to have to include not only the cost of the RV, but the tow vehicle. But even when you do that, you can get a very nice fifth wheel and a new tow vehicle for somewhere between $200,000 and $250,000 brand new. With a Class A diesel pusher, they're going to start somewhere in the $300,000 and go way up from there. So usually cost is a big factor here. You can save money by going the fifth wheel route. The next advantage of fifth wheels, they're easier to work on and repair when it comes to the engine. The engine's right in front of the tow vehicle. It's a common engine. A lot of people know how to work on them and don't have any problem with it. If you have a Class A diesel pusher, the engine's usually buried in the back. It's not easy to get to. It's not easy to work on for mechanics. A lot of shops just don't want to be bothered with them. So it restricts the number of facilities you have available to you for repairs with a Class A RV motorhome. And that's not true with fifth wheel tow vehicles. The next advantage of fifth wheels, there's more safety features for traveling that's built into the tow vehicle. Usually you're going to get airbags there. You know, it just comes as standard. But in Class A motorhomes, you're probably going to get safety belts for everybody, but it's rare to get airbags while you're going down the road. And you're sitting right up there up front. So if there is a front end collision, there's not a lot of distance between you and the collision. So it's something to consider. The next advantage of a fifth wheel over, say, a Class A RV, there are more variety of floor plans to choose from. And that's really great because when you stop and think about it, all Class A's are pretty much laid out the same. You have the cab in the front. That's not going to change. And then in the back, it's usually the bedroom or the bathroom in the back, and then they just move things around in the middle somewhat to change the floor plan. Well, in a fifth wheel, you can have a lot of variety in the floor plan. They move things around all over the place, and it's really up to you to decide what you like best. And so you get that great variety of choice for floor plans. The next advantage of a fifth wheel is very often you get that kitchen island. For cooks, this is huge. They really love that extra counter space that's very hard to come by in many Class A RVs. The next advantage of a fifth wheel, they're very often better for families because the floor plans very often have bunkhouse plans in them or lofts for kids and things along that line. There are bunkhouse plans in Class A RVs too, but it's not nearly as much and not nearly as much variety either. So for families, fifth wheels could be a much better choice. The last point we're going to consider in favor of a fifth wheel is you get even more living space in a fifth wheel than you do with a large Class A motorhome. Why? Because remember I mentioned that you can get up and go back to the kitchen, the bathroom, maybe even the bedroom in a Class A motorhome. That's because the slides are not as deep. But when you have a fifth wheel, they don't have to worry about that. So they make the slides deeper. And therefore, when the slides go out, they go out farther. You have more living space. And don't forget also the high ceilings in those fifth wheels that just gives you that apartment feel. So it's really nice from that aspect. Well, those are advantages for going either way, for a Class A RV motorhome or a fifth wheel. Now, there are a lot of similarities too, honestly. That's just a wash between the two. Things like cost of maintenance, quite frankly, I think they're pretty close because you still have a diesel engine either way in most cases, and the cost is going to be similar. Fuel costs, I think, are going to average out pretty close to the same, really, when you figure it all out with mileage and all of that. Insurance, I think, again, that it's pretty similar when you include the tow vehicle along with the fifth wheel. And setup and tear down at the campsite is going to be very similar in time and effort if you are towing a vehicle along with you behind your motorhome. So all of that is pretty much a wash, I think. Now, I have created guidebooks for the best brands and models that I think you need to be focusing on if you're looking to buy either a Class A motorhome or a fifth wheel. And my guidebooks cover both new and used models between 2021 to 2026. But they have my latest recommendations too, so they're very up to date at this point. You can use those guidebooks along with either my new or used buying guide, and that way you can get the RV that's right for you the first time and not have to go through 2 or 3 of them before you finally figure out what's best for you. You can get the best price on that RV with my guides, and you can make sure there are no major problems that you're going to have lots of issues with and be disappointed with. All of that is in the guides for either new or used RVs. Well, I hope this video is going to help you decide then between Class A RV motorhomes and fifth wheels, and I hope it will help you get the RV that fits you and is the RV of your dreams. And that's it for now. Have safe and happy travels, my friends. Until next time.